I will be looking into the question looked into by Dr. John Olson, the Da Vinci Code plagiarised or not. I will primarily outline the background knowledge of the Da Vinci Code, look into the differences between plagiarism and copyright infringement, then look into the differences found. This is for the Forensic Linguistics module by Laura Beach. Firstly, we shall look into a bit of background knowledge on the novel The Da Vinci Code. The Da Vinci Code was primarily a novel written by Dan Brown, published on the 18th of March 2003, later to have been made into a film. The Da Vinci Code has been translated into over 42 different languages, as it is a well-known novel. This is shown when we see that within the space of 3 years since being published, over 40 million hard copies were sold. The case involves a Californian author named Louis Perdue, who claims his work was plagiarised by Dan Brown, later to be named as the Da Vinci Code. Louis Perdue's books consist of the following: The Da Vinci Legacy in 1983, The Lynn's Testament in 1985, and finally Daughter of God in 2000. It is when Louis Perdue noticed the incredible amount of similarity, such as the consistency of same plot lines, that he asked for help from Dr. John Olson and others to examine and analyse the findings, then to produce the findings in court. I thought it would be a good idea to next look into the differences between plagiarism and copyright infringement. Plagiarism is a criminal offence. It is the use of material not authored by the individual without the acknowledgement of the original author. There are 3 degrees of plagiarism. Literal plagiarism, which is when the individual uses the exact wording found in the original text. Next is mosaic plagiarism, which is a term used for when someone rephrases the original text, once again without acknowledgement of the author. And finally, conceptual plagiarism. Conceptual plagiarism is not as easily noticeable as the previous 2. The rephrasing is dissimilar, however the same use of concept may show signs of plagiarism. To avoid plagiarism, one usually will include a reference list with the author's details along with credibly citing their work throughout. Copyright infringement concerns the use of ideas behind someone's material which is not protected. One generally makes an infringement on the copyright holder's protection through using specifics or expressions of ideas. Now we will look into the findings of Dr. John Olson's analysis of the text. The similarities consist of the same 7 plot lines being used within the both novels. Considering the texts of Louis Perdue were created years before Dan Brown's, already something interesting is happening here. 6 out of the 7 plot lines also appear in the same order in both novels. The plot lines are as follows. We have the documents. The explosive secret, which concerns the plot where someone in the Christian religion murders one of the international experts. In both novels, the expert murdered is the 4th in the team. Very specific to both be the 4th expert and uncanny that it is the case in both novels. The next plot is the murder of the expert. Next is the 4th victim. Then we have the hero is accused of the murder. It is found out that the hero and the expert have previously met. And finally, the message written by the murdered expert, which is in blood. The similarities between the novels are also seen within the characters' attributes and appearance. The heroes are of similar age, their appearances are similar. They both experience claustrophobia, and they are both currently in the same relationship situation. Already the similarities are stacking up, pointing to plagiarism having taken place on behalf of Dan Brown. Furthermore, the heroines in both Louis Perdue's and Dan Brown's novels have similarities. They are not stereotypically attractive, i.e. they are not blonde-haired, blue-eyed and slim. Moreover, their background stories consist of uncanny similarities. The way that they have both experienced a family tragedy where they have been reared by a male, that they used to live in 2 different countries, hence being fluent in 2 different languages, all show similarities not found in non-plagiarised texts. Moreover, both heroines previously worked in law enforcement. One error which was noticed was not only found in Louis Perdue's novel, but also in Dan Brown's novel. Leonardo da Vinci wrote a real piece of writing named the Codex Leicester, which was written on linen paper. Louis Perdue, however, confuses this for it being written on parchment. This confusion was also evident in Dan Brown's novel. Is this merely coincidence? One linguistic function important to the case is the use of linguistic conceptual Frames. Frames is a concept implying we use our encyclopedic knowledge to interpret meanings in language. Encyclopedic knowledge is the knowledge we gain through experience, i.e., knowing the word bed through being taught that particular object was called a bed. Analysis of the novel showed that Louis Perdue and Dan Brown used the same frame to describe the same scene, the Swiss bank. It appears though Dan Brown takes the original frame and expands on it. When constructing a piece of writing, we initially use the language and vocabulary unconsciously through our brain telling us this is the right word to use, in some sense. This comes naturally. However, something that happens when a plagiarist copies work is that they actually have to think which vocabulary to use, as it needs to be dissimilar to the original author's vocabulary. Dr. John Olson notes the author's vocabulary as first line, i.e. most common. The plagiarist's vocabulary will be less common, noted as second line. The examples Dr. John Olson used to describe this was the use of vocabulary found when describing the scene at the Swiss bank. Louis Perdue uses words such as luxury, sofa and chairs, tumbler and chilled, versus Dan Brown's use of lavish, cushioned chairs, crystal glass and fizzing. Here Dan Brown appears to have expanded on Louis Perdue's existing frame by using less common vocabulary. The ruling took place at New York District Court. The judge said that the similarities found were generic and not as a result of plagiarism, further saying Louis Perdue's claims were false. Appeals were later made on behalf of Louis Perdue on the basis that he believed the judge did not correctly understand the findings given by Dr. John Olson et al. The verdict, however, did not change. It is my personal opinion that there appear to be too many coincidences for the similarities to be generic due to the use of frames and vocabulary choice.